So red is going to flop a tile, and then we're going to see where he's going to put that. And now this will currently help his position with the green faction in terms of the politics, because remember last round he stuck an embassy in there, and so if he was able to build one here, that would give him 5 power. But he's got all these other choices here. I think he wants to go ahead and snake this because, again, yellow has worked that power a little bit there. So what I think they're going to do, they'll have to trickle it out a little bit, but they have plenty of money. They want to maintain control of this galactic core here. This embassy is going to be a pain for them, so they're going to go ahead and stick that out there. And they do have the initiative, so they should be able to grab that. And that's they're going to kind of build their embassies out a little bit there. In terms of tech here, the red player drew a tier 1 industrial tech. This is pretty good. If one of your gates is about to be destroyed, you may pay $1 per individual gate and relocate it to a valid position. That can come in handy so that you don't have to rebuild your gate. You can just kind of pay $1 and move it. Now this technology here costs $1. So we'll go ahead and play this here. Doesn't have any really good tier 3 tech. They're kind of really heavy industrial, which is not normal. Now yellow's going to flop a tile here. Look at all these yellow politics here. This one may be good here. This is a little bit more military strength. That could be pretty key for yellow. And I can get that up to a range of 1. Yeah. That's going to be tricky to put out on the board though, because we don't have a good spot to kind of insert it. This is kind of our military front here, this little focal point, because that can build up to a range of 2 and then basically call out to this nice radius here of of military. Now this one would be nice because it would be another blue piece on the board, but like I couldn't put it here. Red's just going to take it. Putting it back here doesn't really do us any good because well, I could support this base here, but I'm trying to be a little bit more aggressive. I could possibly stick it up there because it's 1, 2 away from there. Yeah, you don't go through the core. I don't know if I mentioned that before. That's basically like a black hole or something. So I could stick it up there. I think I could do that. Now, an interesting thing here, I could, if I wanted to, build this one here, because this would be 2 political power and 1 military power. I could also stick that up there, and that could be like a nice 3 points of power when we go to consider area control, and that would make it difficult for red. They could beat on me, but I could stick 3 power up there, and basically the way red is laid it out here, that would be harder for them to beat me in power. But this one I can actually use a little bit of extra power from this guy because he can reach back and touch me, and I can get a little bit more support militarily. I got to do a little bit more construction, basically build 1 extra base to get to that same 3 power, but I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. So yellow's going to go ahead and stick that up there. It's going to be more expensive to get control, but at the end of the day it's going to be more supportive of any kind of conflicts. Now in terms of tech, the yellow player just actually drew this card as a tier 3 political tech, which again we can build because they have a tier 1 and tier 2, even though I haven't cleared up to tier 3 yet. Now the thing is, it's a little pricey. It's $3, but look at this here. When you take a build embassies action, you may relocate your embassies to any open political location for $3, even if it is out of range. So that's going to be a way that I can maybe go and snag like that base up there, kind of get in his way, or even go ahead and slap down some political embassies over there. Let's see, how many range was it? Let's see, any open, so there's no range, so I could get something out there and then start to score points off of his sector there. Meanwhile, a lot of his forces are good. So yeah, I'm going to spend the $3 is going to be a little bit gnarly because yellow player's not doing so great economically, but I'm going to go ahead and pay the 3 and go ahead and build that tier 3 tech there. Okay, so we're in the first action phase of this is round 3. Red has done politicize, yellow has done discover, and this is an interesting thing. Thankfully these 2-player games play a little bit shorter, so you're able to see some of the end game manipulation, sort of the timing of the end of the game here. So I'll discuss more of that when we do yellow's action, but red is now going to try to get political and go into the galactic core with some of his embassies. So because the red player has played the yellow player before, they know what they're up to. So red's going to shoot his wad. He's going to spend 13 bucks. He's going to trickle out these embassies here now from his home sector. He's going to go boom, boom, boom. So again, you can kind of daisy chain the building there because these all have a range of 1. He's going to build that. He's got a nice little foothold there. So he's kind of snaked that from yellow. And then of course for second action, since he's now basically broke, he's going to take 2 bucks from the bank. Yellow's going to push his luck a little bit. He's actually going to survey twice because this tile set is so ripe for that new technology that I just built. He's going to kind of jump and kind of pump this supply here so that he's going to try to end the game a little bit quicker. So he's going to go ahead and just draw a tile. Now he's going to take, let's see, he's going to grab this tile here and put that on the board. So he's going to stick and put that way off in the corner there. Maybe start a little bit of an insurrection or something like that. But as you can see there, if he gets a base there, that's 3 power. And that is to basically red's 1 power. Because they haven't developed their military. This embassy here, the home embassy, doesn't really do a whole lot for you other than give you kind of a home base to spring out embassies from. It actually is 0 power, so it's going to be 1 power to 3 power. So now yellow is going to be dominating red's base there. So they're going to be able to score theirs. They've got a little bit of a front line. So that is why red was very aggressive, because they know, okay, yellow's going to try to push the end of the game. Yellow has a little bit of a lead, but yellow's going to go ahead and do that second discover action here. So we're going to flop the tile here and say, oh, because there's some military there. Now yellow is in a tough position here. They're trying to push this tile stack here to basically end the game, maybe even this round if they can calculate that. But they don't want to take and put one of these out too close to red, because then they'll be able to daisy chain and get out to here, because remember, red has the initiative there with the arbiter. So they may go ahead and stick out. This one might be pretty cool to stick out, but where would they put it? No, you know what, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and put this tile back in their home area. So yellow's just going to go ahead and stick this here on this back side here. Now the only reason they're doing that is so that, maybe they could build something here or not. If they do, they could build the embassy, and that's going to contribute 2 power if this embassy gets in trouble here, because again, they share that same background color. Okay, so we're in the second action phase of the 3rd round, and red feels like they need to be very aggressive, and then obviously yellow is going to try to politicize and then use their special ability to jump out and try to score some points off of red. Now red, what they're trying to do here is they're going to try to wipe out yellow from this sector, because all they've got here is this embassy. If they can do a successful attack there, then they can wipe them out, and then the agent will go away. It's going to be tricky because yellow again has the power that adds +1 to their agent in the conflict. This is a very important round, because kind of depending how this goes is going to dictate if somebody feels like they're in a strong enough position to trigger the end of the game this round versus the next round. Because again, once this tile stack is empty, that means you're in the last phase and you're going to finish out the whole round, and then that'll be it. Now there's a couple variants I should mention here. You can actually play so that you must get rid of every tile, not just a draw stack. And then with a 2-player game, you basically add 8 tiles per player. These are beginner tiles here, not beginner, but they're marked with this this little icon here. And it just if you're playing a 2- and 3-player game, you only use tiles with that icon. So you could, like, in my opinion, you could actually shuffle in 8 more, and then for the 2-player game, and then just play till the board is full. So it does have a fair bit of effect on the dynamics of the game and the conflicts. Makes the conflicts less important over the long haul if you do something like that to extend the game, but people may like that. I don't really feel one way or the other if I like one or the other, but these conflicts are very important, and they're basically game changing, which is cool. I mean, whatever, that's just, if you're in the mood for that, you're in the mood for that. So let's get to red's assault. Now red is trying to push their luck here, because they're going to have basically 3 attack over to 1 + 3, because again, these embassies share their color. So it's 3 to 4 actually. Red is actually losing on this end. Oh, excuse me, no, it's actually 3 to 6, because this agent again counts as +2. Now it's not going to cost red any money, but they can actually get 2 whacks at it here. So because they have the ability that they don't have to pay, they can actually take 2 shots at this. And if they get yellow off the board, that's going to be huge for red. So red's going to flop for industry here. So again, it's 3 to 6. So that's not good. That's no good there for red. So that's 5 to 6, and we'll go ahead and flop the other card. So yellow is going to defend there. So we're going to go ahead and red's just going to choose to do it again. So again, 3 to 6. There's 8 to 6. So we got to hope for a really bad blue here. Well, the lowest you can get is 2, so it's 8 to 8. So that's a draw. So the only outcome of that is that this agent is going to be destroyed in the process. So this gets even more interesting because it's not a clear positive that yellow is going to get knocked out, but they're weakened. And remember, we've got here now 1 action phase left. So in this case, if red were to try that again, that would be 3 to 4. A little bit tighter, but red is still at a slight disadvantage. Now remember, yellow here is going to politicize. They're going to gain 2, and they're going to pay 4 to sneak an embassy out here in red's territory. So now red's not guaranteed their 8 points over here. That's also pretty huge. So now we're going to go into the last action phase. All right, so we're in the last action phase. This is going to be the last one of the game. Now yellow has red kind of by the balls here. Now red, even if they go here and they wipe yellow out, what's going to happen here is red will get the 8 points there, yellow will get the 8 points up here. That's a trade-off. And then red will have the majority here, so they'll get 7 to 4. And then, but yellow will have the majority here, 6 to 3. But yellow already has a 5-point lead over red. So the only way that red could come back here is if they were able to get yellow off of there. Now the only way they could do that is if they could shift their gates. But that action card that does that is this card down here. So this is this industrial card. So this one you could pay, you can move your gates around, they have just enough money and they could do an attack. But this, you can see this is actually a takeover, a merger. They can only attack industrial onto somebody else's industrial. What we want to do is basically, cross markets or specialties. We want to go from industrial targeting either political or military. So we can't do that. I mean, we can do that. We'd have to get a gate out here, from one of these central spots here. And if they had enough money, they could send 2 gates down, because remember, they have that technology that lets them boost the range of their gates there. So that is pretty much the end of the game there for anybody, even if red wipes yellow out. The final way that red would be able to possibly catch up would be if they had better tech. Now they have a tier 1, 2, and 1 tech. That's a total of 2, 4, 6, 8. But yellow's kind of outdoing them over here because they have a 1, 2, and 3 tech. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So yellow's also got the advantage there. So even though yellow basically lost just about every battle here, red, they're still going to come out on the outside, even with red going in and snaking that area there. Now because yellow smartly is going to drain now this tile set here, so that's going to trigger the end of the game as well. So let me just wrap into my final thoughts, and then I'll kind of give you, an idea of what you're kind of missing with this playthrough and what you can kind of see and expect to see. Okay, hope you enjoyed that playthrough. There's a couple things to note here. Now I'd actually played 2-player again about a week ago, kind of in preparation, because it's been a little while since I played the game. I wanted to make sure everything was fresh in my head. This game was not as interesting as that game, unfortunately. In that one, it was more of a 2-pronged, 2-front approach. You kind of had military on military, and then kind of a political versus industrial thing happening there. That one, there was some possibility to kind of game the end of the game, like what happened here, but it wasn't as clear cut where it didn't matter as much. Now the one thing you can see here, because red in this case, and that could have just been the malfunction of my brain trying to explain everything and record everything, they let that 1 sector go in the very first round of the game, and that gave yellow just enough of a lead that wasn't apparent at the time, but that really was the game anyway, because if they hadn't ceded all 8 points to yellow in that round and basically split the difference with them, I think yellow they only had 1 PowerPoint worth on there, so they could have even maybe got the 6 versus the 3. They maybe focus a little too much on that galactic core. So a couple other things I didn't show you. I didn't do much of the technologies from the different leader cards here. I only activated the red's ability once. I do think, I haven't gotten to edit everything of course, but yellow does have a level 2 ability that says you gain +3 power in the current conflict, and you do that even after revealing the attack cards. So I think there was a conflict that yellow may have even won, that they lost. So yellow maybe even would have won by more in that case. Now you can see here, and honestly this is the first game I've seen maybe where this is an issue with 2-player, is being able to game that. And so in a sense, by red not taking that third sector there, that gave the game to yellow. But if we had kept playing and played through all of the technology tiles to the point where, red was still, he was kind of on the comeback here. He would have only lost by a handful of points. The tech also kind of did him in because yellow had a little bit more advanced technology. They have, red had a 1, a 2, and a 1, and then yellow had a 1, 2, and a 3. So they were basically up on 2 tiers for him. So that was also a drawback. But red had a much stronger position on the board. If they're able to get some more turns out of these remaining tiles, they probably would have come closer and maybe advanced a tech or 2. Yellow probably couldn't advance very much tech. So the game was close, even though it was kind of a foregone conclusion in that final instance. It wasn't that bad because it was close, and if we'd have played, with a different variant rule, then maybe red would have won. So there is some tinkering that you could do there with that. But again, like I said in the intro, you kind of miss out on the negotiation. I can bribe you and pay you like 5 caps, to go attack this guy. You can also use your political embassies to, add support to another player's attack, kind of like, I don't know, like in Diplomacy or Game of Thrones or something like that. You can only do that once per turn and stuff like that. But so I hope at least it gave you some kind of idea, a little bit of the mechanics, a little bit of sort of the basic area majority strategy that you can kind of go for. You can see the importance of initiative, of the order of operations, and how that works and how that plays out. Really indicative of like an El Grande kind of game or something like this, just any of your traditional area majority games. So it's almost, it's kind of billed as a 4X, but it's kind of like an El Grande, a Tammany Hall. I'm trying to think of some other area majority games where that initiative and sometimes being last is good and sometimes being first is good, or just getting the turn order right and even bribing for the turn order could be very key. Another thing that you saw develop is both players, for the most part, red, even though they lost to a lesser extent, but their economic engine was a little bit stalled because they didn't diversify. So when they do that discover card, it's not a very good cash injection. So there's a little bit of that, that it got a little bit wonky here, but I think it's also part of the game and part of the game dynamic as well. I mean, you saw red with that huge industrial front there, which wasn't quite fast enough because again they ceded that third sector, but it was very strong. And so the political, you can say, is a very quick way to score points and get power because you can place a base and boom, use that 3. And yellow used that to effect to keep at least some control on the galactic core and to steal that kind of outlying sector in red's home area. So it's a very quick way to bam bam bam, you can just grab a little bit of points here and there. But as red kind of built that entrenchment of industry, then they were able to get a little bit of steamroll. And yellow maybe would have also been able to keep the lead if they focused more on their military, because that's also very hard to take down. So I hope you saw some interesting ideas with the technology. The technology is kind of subtle, and the one thing that I didn't do, which I don't know, I'm of two minds of the combat in this game. I like the random card flop because it's kind of like rolling dice, and that's fine. It keeps things, you don't have to think too much. It doesn't add a whole lot more AP to a game that's already AP prone. Because normally, like I said, you take a card out of your hand and then you play it for the numbers there. But again, the one issue with that is you can play that card and it goes into an inactive tech, and then you get it back. So you kind of always, if you have like you build up your industry, for example, and you have an 8 industry, you can always kind of keep using that. And in a 2-player game, that can get really annoying, and that's why I like the card flop. Now, in a 3, or not even 3, like a 4 or 5-player game, that's not as big of an issue because you use that card up for the turn, and so everybody goes, okay, he used his 8. So now we can move in and jack him up. So you got to be careful of that. It's kind of Game of Thronesy in that way, where you're like, okay, he used Eddard Stark, so now he's vulnerable, so let's go in and rock and roll. But with a lower player count, it's an issue. So anyway, yeah, if you have any questions about anything, the 2 players is really the only way that I can play this out on camera, because the game has a lot of moving parts. I don't think mechanically to me it's very streamlined and it works very well. But in terms of assessing all the different possibilities and permutations of the area control, I mean, 2 players that's about as much as I can do. I can't hold you should really play this with probably 4 or 5. 2 and 3 is fine, but to really get to that richness of the game, you got to play with 4, I think. 5 and 6, boy, I mean, you play with new people, it's going to take a while, but this is one of those games you keep in your collection, you kind of let it marinate and sit there for a couple of years. So anyway, that is your playthrough of Hegemonic. Thanks.